Hey everybody, welcome back to D&J's Epic Quest. It is Derek Thord with
Jarza Arlong.
Good to be back. Feels like it's been a minute. I guess most of you won't see it, but I am not in my normal recording place. So it feels a little bit different, but it's all right. Basement's taken care of. Just got to get put back together now. So
Nice.
How you been, man?
I've been okay. It's been a very dreary couple of days.
Oh, yeah? Why is that?
Just with the weather.
Oh, gotcha.
Not anything in particular, just kind of a downtrodden type atmosphere.
Yeah. Well, you had a chunk of time off of work here, right? Did you do anything fun?
Oh, yeah. I did some podcast editing. I did some reading. I got
What are you reading?
Huh? Priory of the Orange Tree.
How was that?
It's okay. Enough to keep my interest. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how I really feel about it. It's like good, but it's not like, I don't know, over the top by any means.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just kind of chill.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. You?
Just been working. Had the basement project, kids' birthdays. This weekend we've got a grad party on Saturday for my nephew. That's kind of about it, I think. So, and then we'll slowly start putting the basement back together and deciding, like what kind of flooring and all that crap we're gonna do, and start spending money on that.
There you go. Do you do laminate flooring or you do carpet?
We carpeted twice. We're not doing that again.
So you're gonna go with like a laminate floor?
Yeah. Even though now, we could probably put carpet down there and be fine, but yeah, just with the cats. Oh yeah, my one cat, she had surgery and they thought they had like a stone in her bladder or something, and then they're like, well, actually she doesn't. Do you still want us to do the surgery? And we're like, well, I guess she's there, you may as well. So they found some like fibrous strands that were like attached to her bladder, they said, and they cut those, but they didn't really think that was going to do anything. But she seems to be better. So I don't know. It's hard to say, but it's been kind of a battle for a little while with that kitty cat.
Kitty cat. Kitty cat.
Yep. So
little titties.
You ready to take the patrons there?
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's been a minute.
We're a little out of practice. I think it's not been as long as it probably feels like, but
it would probably help if I would open the document that we always do that has all this information in it instead of just keeping Zoom open. Might help.
The way you remember what's in what's chapter, I would not be surprised if you had your sections memorized.
I don't have my sections memorized.
But I believe in you enough that I think you could probably give a pretty accurate recollecting without seeing it.
Have you not listened to our first 2 episodes that we ever did? Those were not summarized. Those were not summarized.
We didn't?
No.
I have not listened to those in a long time.
We wung those. We totally winged it.
We learned.
Yeah, that's the important part. But without further ado, we've got Jan the Picker, Luciana Tregan, Ryan the Topological, Nate Fiddle Me This. I screwed that up. Sorry, apologies. Damien Face in the Rock, Nate Fiddle Me This, Shield Anvil Dylan, Calvin He Who Witnessed, Livia the Malazan Potato, Aaron Mott Irregular, Scott the Only, Graceless Passion, Dead Smell, Gestriant, My Own Genesis, Alex the High Mage, Tyler the Great Raven, The Joyful Union, and Tony the Watch. Thank you all so much for your patronage.
Well, patrons, yes, thank you for all you guys do. Love interacting with you guys. Just another shout out I want to do here. Going to give a shout out to Chuck Jackman, who up until this point has been the only person to comment on our episodes on Spotify. He's done it on a few different ones. So thanks for that, Chuck Jack. Hope you're doing well. And one more thing, Justin, we're going to do this now. So I know I told you, I don't know, an episode or two ago, I was trying to watch my mouth here a little bit more, but I got some bullshit for you.
Oh.
It's going to be fun. We're going to play a game here quick.
Oh, fuck.
First off, you need to know that I'm going to ask you a question. I will not give you any sort of response. I'm not answering this question. This is solely you.
Okay.
I will have, I want to know the why on each answer here.
Oh, fuck.
All right, we're going to play, and I don't think we've done this before. We're going to play Fuck, Marry, Kill.
I don't even know what that is.
Okay, I'm going to give you 3 characters. You have to fuck one, you have to marry one, you have to kill one.
Ah, gotcha.
And I will hold a 4th in reserve if you would like to swap one of them out.
Ooh, okay. All right.
Okay, so your 3 that you can choose from: Annister's mother, Malik Rel, and Bidethal.
Okay, so fuck, marry, kill, right?
Yep.
I want to swap out Malakarel.
Okay, you get the Azalan then.
Okay, yes.
Oh, that's better?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. The thing that will light you on fire with its piss.
So I'm going to marry it, right? So then that way, I can, it's a partnership, right? Better to be at the right hand of the devil than in its path, right?
That's your logic, I guess. Okay.
Yes. So I'm going to marry the Aslan. I'm going to fuck Annister's mother because she's already a moaner and already a screamer. So, and then I'm going to I'll kill Bidethal.
Okay.
Because he deserves it.
I think that went about as well as it could have.
Okay. I'm glad that I could, what's the word?
Entertain me?
Yes.
So next time we record, if you want to come up with some bullshit to ask me, go for it. Maybe we can just kind of alternate or something.
I mean, we could keep the fuck, marry, kill going. So next time I'll ask you.
Those were like 3 of the worst characters I could think of, where I didn't really think there was a good way to go about it.
Well, I don't know why you gave me an option for an out.
Because I thought it would be fun if you took it, and you did.
I did take it because I would kill both Malakarel and Bidethal.
But what if you didn't have that option?
I would still kill them and marry the one of their corpses.
That's cheating.
Saying.
Okay.
All right.
Well, that was fun.
Yes, that was entertaining. Okay. Good to know.
Give me the whys. Well, I guess you did. Yeah. Never mind.
What were my whys?
Because you wanted a partnership with the Aslan, and Annister's mother is a moaner, and Bidethal deserves it.
Yes, there you go. Good job.
I was listening.
10 points.
All right. Finally, we get the epigraph here for chapter 16. Power has a voice, and that voice is the song of the Tano Spirit Walker, Kimlock.
Lovely. All right. Well, here we go. What is this? Chapter 16? Chapter 16 of the House of Tunes. Section 1. Kalam woke up to a nuzzling at his side by a boa crawl. He suppressed his urge to grab the creature by the neck and fling it against the wall. He got up and removed the shirt and tossed it into the corner of the small room. He had not seen Iskarol Poost in weeks. Apart from a few tingles at his fingers and toes, he was more or less recovered from his ordeal with the Enkaral. Kalam had delivered the diamonds and was thinking he'd like to bounce. Faint singing came from the hallway, and Kalam thought to himself that maybe one day Magora would sing it correctly, but for now it was grating. Kalam went to retrieve a shirt from his backpack when the doors flung open, and Magora, with a bucket and a mop, asked if Poost had been in here. Kalam replied that he hadn't seen Poost in days. Magora said that it was the priest's turn to clean the kitchen. Kalam asked if this was all Magora did, was follow Poost's shadow all day long. Magora seemed to take offense to this. She stormed up to Kalam and jabbed the mop in his direction. She exclaimed that she was not the only one who uses the kitchen. Kalam stepped back, wiping spittle from his face, but Magora stepped towards him again. She explained that his suppers had to have come from somewhere, and that Shadow Throne didn't magically make them appear from thin air. Kalam started to say good grief when Magora told him to shut it, as she was the one talking, not him. She shoved the mop and bucket into Kalam's hands. She then spied the Boak Rollo pup that woke up Kalam. She crouched and made her way to him. Kalam intervened and told Magora to knock it off and to leave. Magora said not without her pet, as he had been leaving flakes of skin everywhere. Kalam deduced that she was going to harm this creature. Kalam couldn't believe that he was defending this creature and gestured to the doorway wherein a mass of Boak Ral were waiting. Magora turned around and exclaimed that this was how Poost hides, using the creatures to spy on her. She charged the doorway. The massive creatures shrieked and scattered. One managed to slip between the Diver's witch's legs and flew up to the pup on the cot. It scooped up the Boak Rala babe and bolted for the door. Magora's shrieking died as she got further down the hall. He heard a tee-hee and turned to see Iskarol Poost emerged from a shadow in a far corner. Kalam scowled and said to Poost that he had waited long enough in this madhouse. Poost agrees and rants about Kalam having the freedom to leave on his own free will, but that wasn't the case. Poost hands Kalam a bag of diamonds and tells him not to spend them all in one place. He reminds Kalam that he must breach the whirlwind. Kalam said that this was his intent, but asks how he would do it undetected. Poost replied that with the help of Shadow Throne's chosen mortal, Iskarol Poost, High Priest and Master of Rashan, and Minas and Tyr, the whirlwind is a goddess and her eyes cannot be everywhere. He tells Kalam to quickly gather his things, as he had left another mess in the kitchen, so it was time to go.
I did think about using Agora as one of your 3 choices for the game.
I think that was too easy. I appreciate you giving me a challenge.
Good.
All right. First thing that I got here is just this Kalam's urge to strangle this small Boak Rala and throw it against the wall. And I thought it was funny that he suppressed the urge, not because he lacked compassion for this thing, but because the Boak Rala had a complex social structure, and he would be swarmed by the thousands if he were to do so. So I think it's funny that, it's just that distinction between probably not a good idea and just being compassionate.
Yeah. But then I think about, remember Poost was swatting them with brooms and stuff in Deadhouse Gates. They didn't seem to care about that.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's because it's a babe.
True.
So
could be.
Just part with the Encaral. And I know that there has been some clarification on that part, and I have reread that section in chapter 12. I think that it makes sense now. I see where I missed some things as far as the whole demon being out of body versus, it doesn't matter. I was wrong. But in chapter 12, when he is attacked by the Encaral, which was possessed by the demon from Britti's monastery, there was a section in there where it talked about the extinction of the Encaral east of the Jag Odin. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
So I'm curious, and I'm wondering if maybe it's crossed your mind, it crossed my mind, but is it possible that the Boak Rala, or maybe a descendant of the Encaral, or an evolution to not be as big because they would take up less resources, thus allowing them to survive?
I thought that, the Encaral I always kind of thought were lizard-like, not like a dragon, I guess, but where the Bocarala, I think of that little, isn't there like a little monkey thing in Futurama? Like that's what I think of.
Oh, Nibbler.
Yeah,
Hmm.
like a little primate with wings.
Maybe. I guess it's hard. I guess the canon is weird for me. I don't know. I guess I see them as reptiles. Even the Boakrala, because even in here it says that he's leaving his skin everywhere. I don't think that that's like a dandruff thing. I think that is a
Like
shedding.
it's molting. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Just, they have very similar sounding names. So I was always kind of wondering if maybe, the Encaral, very similar to dinosaurs, right? Like the theory around dinosaurs is that they died out because, they were just too big, right? Like to sustain themselves. I wonder if it was kind of a similar thing.
Maybe.
I'm sure there's many theories out there, but birds, tiny dinosaurs, right?
Yep.
Boakral, tiny Encaral.
Can't say I've thought about it, but yeah.
I just thought it was interesting, and I don't know why. While I was reading the section, why that came to mind. I just thought it was interesting and thought that I should write it down. Make
Nice.
a note in it.
A pin? Maybe not so much a pin.
A pin. This part where Kalam is hearing this faint singing, and again, it's terrible. It sounds absolutely atrocious. So that's why he assumes that Megora is singing badly. I have a feeling that this is something else. I don't know if you feel the same way or.
I mean, I didn't think it was Megora singing at any point, no.
Okay, cool. So you think that it's the Tano?
Yeah, I mean, I think Pooch tells us as much.
Yeah,
I think maybe that's my first section. I don't remember. But
you're right. Yeah, it is. Just kind of near the end, Poost reminds Kalam that he must breach the whirlwind. It's brought me back to what the presence told Fiddler, the presence that we thought was Sormo Anath, that his kin and him must break the whirlwind. I think I got that part right, where Kalam and Fiddler are gonna meet up to take down the whirlwind.
I think they're going to do something.
I mean, you see that though, right? Like, I'm not completely delirious.
I don't think you're delirious. I'm still like, I think that makes sense, but it's also like,
You're not
who
100% though.
who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah, that's true. Okay, Mr. Bone Hunters, completely predicting something 2 books away.
I'm not predicting. I mean, it just seems to fit.
Yeah. Well, it seems to fit too.
Sure. I'm not against it.
Yeah. This last part where Iskarl Poost, says that he's high priest and master of Rashan and Minas and Tyr. Here I'm going to go on my famous rant. And I still think he's Quick Ben. I mean, think about it. He's always hiding. Poost is always hiding, allowing him to be at 2 places or more at once. I mean, we don't know how many mages that can even do 2. And here he has mastered all 3 of Light, Shadow, and Dark Warrens. And to me, that's totally possible that these would be 3 of the 12 that he can do. I don't know. I'm sure that I'll probably get, hazed and whatever, but I don't know. I just get this weird feeling. And just this whole like desert witch saying that he smelled like Raraku in the beginning of Memories of Ice. There's just too many small details. Or it's just the author is leading us to something else that I'm not picking up, but
It will be interesting to see what happens.
I mean, yeah. I don't know. I mean, I get that Poost is human. Like, I don't think that he's like some like strange ascendant or anything like that. I mean, he's human. These are all human Warrens.
Yeah.
And the last thing that I'll say is I liked this comic relief about cleaning the kitchen, because that's kind of something that like spouses bicker over, right? For him to be like, well, we gotta go because I used the kitchen and didn't clean up. So
Yeah. You can just kind of to feed off of that. I know I had texted you about this after I read it. And maybe, I guess, I don't know if you really knew. Well, I guess it probably would have been this part. I think this is the only part. But I kind of, after reading this section the first time, I was like, is Poost a divers? Is he a Bokarala diver? Like, it just kind of crossed my mind, and then you're like, no. And then after reading it, summarizing it, I don't really think that. But at the time, I was kind of like, oh, I could. Well, maybe that's weird, but maybe it's a thing.
I mean, well, I can't remember what epigraph it was, but it basically told us that all three of these light, shadow, and dark warrens are an illusion, right? They play off illusionary measures, and this explains how he's able to just disappear and reappear.
Yeah, I think it was just like with the Bokarala there, and then it disappeared, and then Pooh suddenly was there. It's like, oh, maybe that's it or something. I don't know.
Maybe.
I'm not feeling that strong on it now. I'll say that.
Yeah, it's hard. Poost is such an interesting character because like you
Yeah,
really don't know that much about him, so he's just kind of crazy, right?
he's a freaking goofball.
Yeah, he is a goofball. But those are all the thoughts that I had for that section. It was this chapter went by really quick just because there was a lot of like very quick kind of almost feel like we were just like reacquainting with characters throughout this chapter, kind of giving us a like a light touch on what they're up to.
Yeah, it was pretty straightforward. Like, I didn't have very much for comments at all on this. So as we go through my sections, if there's anything that's on your mind, definitely bring it up because I think I've only got a few comments throughout this whole chapter. So
It is what it is. I think that the sections that you had were probably more straightforward than the one that I had. There is a section in here that I do really, really enjoy, and it's for weird reasons, kind of personal to me. Kind of one of my favorite sections in this book so far.
interesting. Okay, well, I don't know what that would be. I guess offhand, I just read this
You can't
chapter.
even, you don't think you can guess which one it is? Which section in this chapter it is?
Not really. Like I just reread this chapter a couple hours ago while I was donating plasma. Nothing's sticking out in my head right now.
All right, well, we'll talk about it when we get there.
All right. They emerged from the warren of shadow in daylight, less than 100 paces away from the whirlwind. Kalam grabbed Poost and turned him around, asking him about the damn singing. Where was it coming from? He heard it in the monastery and thought it was Megora. Poost called Kalam a fool and said Megora couldn't sing, but he didn't hear anything other than the wind and sand. He thought out loud that Kalam must be mad. The sun had cooked his brain. Poost kept rambling that it must be the Tano song, but Kalam is still mad. Kalam pushed him away and walked towards the whirlwind. Poost quickly followed. Kalam asked how they would manage this. Poost said it was simple. The goddess would feel the breach like a knife stabbing. She wouldn't be able to ignore it. Thus, the misdirection. And there was no one better at misdirection than Poost. That sounds like a very Krupp-like thing to say. Once they were within 20 paces of the whirlwind, they were engulfed in sand. Poost told Kalam to hold on tight and disappeared. The Aslan suddenly appeared and grabbed Kalam, tucked him under an arm, and plunged through the wall of sand. A roar was in Kalam's ears as he was beaten by the sand. Ahead lay ruins of a city. Below the demon was a trail of fire. The demon raced across the sand, up a wall, and chucked Kalam through a hole big enough to fit him through, but not the Aslan, which landed in the rubble. There was a thunder overhead several times. Once the noise stopped, there was only the sound of the whirlwind left. Kalam thought the Aslan was fast and that it must have made it back out. Kalam would wait until night until he moved, but he could no longer hear the song in his head, which was a small blessing. Kalam checked over his weapons and waited. I don't think I had any comments on this first section of mine.
You don't think it's weird that like Poos disappears and then the Aslan suddenly appears?
I mean, that is weird.
I don't know what to make of it. I really don't know how. I mean, I don't think that Poost is the Aslan or anything like that, but I just think it's a weird timing thing for me, and I'm not sure what to make of it.
I guess we haven't seen both of them in the same place at the same time, have we? I don't think
Well,
we
and that's
have.
what I was thinking. Like when Pooh showed up, was it the Aslan that went and got him? Isn't that what you told me? Or is it just
Yeah. Yes, yeah, right. I was just thinking about that. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe there's something there.
Maybe Poost is a demon. I don't know. It's interesting. It's something that, I'll keep in mind going forward. Like, oh, maybe I'll find some more evidence of one way or the other.
Right.
But yeah, no, very straightforward. He's inside the whirlwind.
I don't know if there's a better place to be. Yeah, there's definitely better places to be than probably inside that.
All right. Well, I guess with that, we can move on.
Yeah, this one might go pretty quick here.
Yes, it will. Section 3. Cutter emerged from the gateway with Apsalar in his arms. The weight of her limp body sent waves of pain through his injured shoulder. 30 paces ahead, where two paths converged, lay a score of corpses, and in their midst was Cotillion. Cutter made his way to the Shadow God. The Tis Edur were off to the left, but Cotillion's attention was on the body at his feet. As Cutter approached, the rope crouched down to brush hair away from the woman's face. Cutter recognized the woman as the old witch, the one who had been badly burned. He thought to himself that he had thought she was the source of power in the Malazan party he had found on the island. It wasn't, though. It was Traveler. Cutter halted a few paces away and realized that the expression on Cotillion's face was one of recognition. Cutter asked if the rope knew her. Cotillion said her name was Hall, and he had thought that Surly had wiped out all the Talons. He thought Hall had been dead all this time. Cotillion explained that he had taught them how to hide well, as they were good enough to even hide from him. Cutter asked what the god thought Hall was doing here. Cotillion told Cutter that that was the wrong question. The right question is to ask what she was doing with Traveler. The rope wondered what the Talon was up to. He wondered if Traveler had known who Hall was. He tells himself out loud that of course Traveler did, but Hall had not aged well. Cutter cuts him off and asks why Cotillion didn't just go ask Traveler himself. As he was just back in the courtyard, Cotillion reached down and took the yellow-stained talon from the witch's necklace and tossed it at Cutter. The rope instructs Cutter that he will board the Tis Eater ship as he's sending the pair of them to another agent of his. Cutter asked to do what? Cotillion said to wait until they were needed. Cutter asked for what? Cotillion explained that they would be assisting in the taking down of the master of the Talon. Cutter asked if they knew where they were. Cotillion lifted Hall and told Cutter that he had his suspicions about all of this. He turned the frail figure in his arms. He studied Cutter for a moment and then said, "Look at the two of us." He swung around and began walking toward the forest. Cutter stared after him and then shouted that it wasn't the same. It's not. They're not. Cutter hissed a curse and then made his way to the shoreline. In chapter 12, I had guessed that the power was from Traveler, and so it was kind of nice to get a little bit of confirmation here.
Yeah, I do remember you calling that out. So nice job, man.
Thanks, dude. Secondly, when Cotillion is saying what her name is, and he had thought that Surly had wiped out all of the Talons, I kind of get like a very, like, I just feel bad for Cotillion here. He thought that, Hall has been dead this whole time just to have her lie dead at her feet, right? Like, oh, you weren't dead this whole time, but now you're dead. You know what I mean? Like, it just kind of makes me feel bad for him. I like the side that we're getting from him, just this vulnerable kind of in his feels, because we don't really get to know them very well up until this point. They're just kind of characters on a chessboard, just doing whatever it is that they're doing, putting people in place.
I suppose you don't usually probably think to get a lot of emotion out of a god in a book anyways.
Right. So yeah, it was kind of cool to get that, I guess, like humanesque side to him.
Yeah.
Okay, this part where Cotillion wonders what the Talon was up to, and I'm not sure if Cotillion is referring to Traveler as a Talon, but maybe he is, or if this is referring to the Talon as an organization. Because before this, he's like, the right question would to ask was what she was doing with Talon, or what Hall was doing with Traveler. So we know that Hall is a Talon. What is she doing with Traveler? And then the rope wondered what the Talon was up to. So, and that's kind of where I'm like, I'm not sure if she's referring, or if Cotillian's referring to Traveler as a Talon, or if he's just referring to that organization as a whole. Because a few words later, he's wondering if Traveler knew who Hall was. And what we don't get answered, because he's cut off, is that Cotillion knows that Traveler knows that Hall was a Talon, right? So, leading into my next comment, Hall should be ringing a bell for you. We've seen this name before.
Yep.
Do you know where?
Well, I'm looking at your comment now. I don't know that I would have remembered it was Nock's wife, but I did remember the name.
267 or 296.
You're just whipping out page numbers now, huh?
296. Right there. It goes, who were these first hirelings, Admiral? Myself, Amaron, Dujek, and a woman named Hall, my wife. So she essentially is a part of the family. Like she was the first to kind of enter Kellenved and Dancer's partnership, right?
Yes. I do. I remember I thought, well, because Nock was the one that was telling the story about the boat and all the snakes, right? In the water.
No.
Is that where that came up as well?
That was Fiddler. Fiddler was telling that story.
But it was about Nock, right?
Yes.
Okay. That's kind of what I was thinking about. But
got it. It doesn't make sense to me because he has tasked Cutter, right, and Apslar to go take down the master of the Talons, right? But I thought that Cotillion was the master of the Talons, because didn't they war with Surly's claws? So that part doesn't make sense to me. Like, why is he sending Cutter and Apslar to go take out the Talons when he's the one that organized them when he was human?
Well, wasn't there like a falling out and everything?
I don't remember. Nothing's coming to mind. I know that like they were dismantled, right? Like there's still few members here and there, but I thought that wasn't because of Cotillion. I think that was because they all thought that Dancer and Kellenved were dead.
I guess I don't have any more answers.
That's fair.
Not that I really had an answer to begin with, but
it's curious to me, right? Like, you know, that's like me drawing in a sketchbook and loving it so much, but then, you know, I want to burn it a few years later.
I mean, you could.
I mean,
right?
I could, but I based on the way that Cotillion is reacting to Hall's death, doesn't tell me that he doesn't care.
Yeah, it seems, it definitely bothers him.
So I think that is probably what's getting me the most. Like, I could understand if he had more like apathy in the situation, but he almost seems very compassionate, you know, that someone this close, this friend, as we kind of discover in the next section, is dead. And so it's just weird. Like, if she was a Talon, it almost kind of seems like it's good to him that she's dead. He just doesn't like it. I don't know.
Confusing.
Yeah, exactly. That's my point. And then lastly, this part where, and I didn't get it at first, but I think it's like a very poetic mirroring of situations. Like Cotillion lifts Hall, right? And Cutter has Apslar in almost duplicate position, right? In essentially the same position. And then before Cotillion leaves, he's like, look at the two of us. And at first I was like, I don't understand what exactly that is doing. But because they're both holding limp figures, I think it's supposed to go deeper than this, though. I think that this might have been... No, never mind. I already answered my own question. At first, I had written that I think that maybe this is a lover of Cotillion, similar to Cutter and Apslar. So maybe even though she was married to Nock, maybe Cotillion had feelings for her. But I think that this is reason why Cutter gets so upset is that what happened to Hall may very well happen to Apsalar, which is what Cutter interprets Cotillion's remark to be. So the only thing different about that scenario is that Hall is dead, but Apsalar is not. And Cotillion's like, look at the two of us, almost kind of like saying like, hey, we have very similar situations. However, yours is slightly different, but very well has the potential of ending up the same way. I don't know.
Do we want to talk about who you think Traveler is, or do you want to do that later?
I mean, we can do that in your next section because I feel like that has more reveal than my section does.
Okay.
But yeah, those are all my thoughts.
Well, section 4 here. Cotillion walked until he reached a small glade where he gently set her body down in the center. Shadows spun into a shape that eventually took the form of Shadow Throne. Cotillion knelt next to Howl's body and told Amanus that Traveler was in the Edur ruins. Amanus shrugged, saying he would not be interested in answering their questions. He was as stubborn as any Dal Hanese. Cotillion reminded Amanus that he was Dal Hanese. Amanus was aware and said, it was her, wasn't it? And how many times did their followers need to die? Cotillion said she thought they were gone, and in a way she was right, but not in the most important way. Amanus asked what he meant. Cotillion said he meant as a friend. Amanus wanted to know if this was something he would pursue. Cotillion saw little choice in the matter. The Talon was up to something, and they needed to be stopped. Amanus said they need to make sure they fail. Had he found a trail? Cotillion said he would speak more on that momentarily. He had realized who was orchestrating this whole thing. Shadow Throne asked if that's where Cutter and Apsalar were going, and if they were enough. Cotillion said he has other agents available, but would like Apsalar there in case things go sideways. Amanus asked where. Cotillion said Raraku. Cotillion couldn't see it, but he knew his friend was smiling. As he said, the time had come, and he should tell him more of his own adventures. The diamonds he had given Kalam. He had wondered about those. Amanda said they should take Howl's body home, to their home, and then they need to talk. Cotillion agreed. Amanus added that, with Traveler so close, it made him nervous. Moments later, the glade was empty as the shadows dissipated.
I forgot that what I was talking about is actually in my next section.
Oh, well, you're good.
But it will bring in points from yours.
Sure. So I only had one comment on the section, and it's where, Cotillion said he realized who was orchestrating this whole thing. Who do you think this is? You think it's like federal? I don't know.
Well, I think that what he's thinking is Cotillion is saying that he realizes who's orchestrating the whole thing, and he thinks that they're in Raraku. So I guess who do we know that is on Raraku that could be a Talon?
Drawing blanks right now.
Well, the only one that comes to mind is Bowden.
Well, okay. Sure. And I had been kind of thinking that he was Traveler, but I also... Bowden wasn't Dal Hanese, was he?
I don't remember him being Dal Hanese.
So I feel like I'm going to step back on that, because I know you had thoughts. I guess obviously we don't know if that's right, but you might be more in line than what I was.
I mean, maybe. I think that Amanus is smiling. Like Cotillion suspects that he's like secretly smiling or smirking, right? Because that is where the biggest fragment of, Corralled Emerlane is on this realm, right? I would assume that they would want to take it as well to prevent competition, is my guess, right? Like, that's probably what Amanus is worried about. And then also Cotillion realizes that he understands who could be doing all of this, and I think that it's Bowden, but I think that he's going to find a dead end, right? Because Hood took Bowden.
Yes, but he's still like, well, I guess he's in like Hood's realm, isn't he?
Right, he's part of his house.
But obviously he can like pop in and out. Like he could be out walking on the world somewhere if he wanted, right?
That's true. Yeah, I guess it's hard to say, but outside of that, I don't have an answer for your question.
Gotcha. All right. Well, maybe we'll find out. I mean, I feel like that's a question we'll get answered, but
Yeah.
it's probably obvious enough. It's just like we don't know, so we don't know. But once we get that reveal, we'll be like, okay, well, that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that makes total sense. I think that like if that does get revealed, we'll be like, God damn it. It's gonna
Yeah.
be one of those moments for sure.
I was also thinking about this. I think I know what your favorite section or favorite part will be.
What do you think it is?
Is it where Onrack is talking about drawing?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So yeah, we'll probably talk about that to death. When we get there, everyone's gonna be like, God damn it, Justin, move on.
Well, we're clipping along pretty good because
Yeah.
what we've been going for like an hour.
About that. Yeah. And there's only 9 sections, so we're on 5.
All right. Well, you want to take it away?
Yeah. Cutter reached the shoreline. 4 boats had been pulled up onto the flat shelf of a rock. Anchored in the bay were 2 large ships, both badly damaged. Around the 4 boats were 2 fallen trees, likely to be replacement masts. Barrels containing food and water stood in a row nearby. Cutter set Absalar down and took in the boats. He noticed many carvings on the gunnels of the boat. He heard coughing behind him and spun around. Absalar bolted upright, spat, and started shivering. Cutter quickly returned to her side. She asked about Darist. Cutter explained that he was dead, but so were all the Taistedur. He explains there was one amongst the Malazans. When he was cut off when Absalar figured it was the one with much power. Cutter walked over and got Absalar some water. Cutter stated that the man's name was Traveler. Absalar said that she knew him. Well, she didn't, but Dancer did. From his memories, she was able to decipher that Dancer knew Traveler well. She explains that they were 3, and it was never just the 2 of them, referring to Keleved and Dancer. She asked if Cutter knew that. From the very beginning, it was the 3 of them. Before Taishran, before Dujek, before even Surly. Cutter said that it made no difference now. They needed to leave the island. He says that Traveler can have the island to himself. He asked if she was well enough to lend a hand. Absalar asked where they were going. Cutter hesitated, but finally said that Cotillion had another task for them. Absalar told him not to walk this path. He scowled and said that he thought she would appreciate the company. He offered her the ladle of water. She studied him for a long moment and then accepted the water. First thought is the carvings on the gunnels of the boat. It just reminds me of that scene in Memories of Ice where Kafal is inside the little, room underneath the floor in the thrall, and Paran is down there with him, and they're looking at the carvings on the boats, and I'm wondering if they are the same carvings.
I had the same thought. I was thinking the same thing. Like it reminded me of that part in Memories of Ice as well.
Mm-hmm. But I'm wondering if it's maybe like an Edur depiction of those battles instead of a Barghast depiction, because these are Edur boats.
Maybe that's just a thing. They're just carving pictures into their canoes. I don't know.
Or maybe they stole them from the Barghast. I don't know. So
That could be.
that's what it reminded me of. So, but now here's where, after rereading this chapter, I have some questions about this. But at the time of the summary, where Absalar is explaining that they were 3, and it was never just the 2 of them, referring to Kellenved and Dancer, and from the very beginning, it was the 3 of them. And this is where I think that Traveler is Decem Altor, because in Deadhouse Gates, after they got inside of Tremolor, they came across the body of his daughter. Like, do you remember that?
Yep.
Yeah. So when he was given the sword of Darist, vengeance or grief, that would work for Desem to wield the sword. Secondly, this part of Dancer's memories that they were three, always three, from the very beginning. Apsar recalling these things combined with Darist's sword makes me think that Traveler is Desem. However, now that I've reread the chapter, this comment that says from the very beginning it was the three of them before Taishran, before Dujek, before even Surly. But as I stated on 296, later on down in that chapter, it said Dancer later bolstered our numbers by recruiting among the refugee Nepans who fled the conquest, Cartheron Crust and his brother Urko, and Surly, Lucine. 3 more men were to follow shortly thereafter. Tak Elder, Desem Altor, who was, like Kellenved, a Dalhanese blood. So the only thing that doesn't make sense to my theory is the fact that he was recruited, according to Nock, he was recruited after Surly. But in here, Apslar is saying that he came before Surly.
So you should definitely pin that in case it is Desem Altor, because then obviously it's just some inconsistency type thing.
Think so?
Maybe. Or it's somebody else. But
Yeah.
do we know anybody else who's Dalhanese?
I mean, Poos is Dalhanese. Magor is Dalhanese. Desem is also Dalhanese. So, like, I feel like that is the one thing that puts a kind of an obstacle into my theory, but everything else tells me it's Desem.
I think for me, like your bit with the sword, like for me, doesn't really hinge on that too much. Maybe it's a hint, but for me, I think the bigger thing was I don't remember if Dasim Ultor was Dalhanese, and then you just gave the part that he is. So, I mean, I'm gonna roll with that for now. But like that's just my own feelings. Is the sword didn't make too much of a difference. It was, where was he? Where was he from?
Right. Yeah. That makes sense. But also, throughout the journey so far, like when people are talking about Kellenved a dancer, they also talk about Dacian, which kind of, again, from the very beginning, it was the three of them, right? Like,
Yeah.
it was never just the two of them. Maybe Nock doesn't know that Desem has always been there and just suddenly showed up, and, I don't know. It's very easy to get things chronologically wrong.
Yeah, dude, but that's such like a good catch though. I wonder if anybody else has caught that because that seems like such a small thing. Like I think like as a writer, it would be easy to overlook that.
Maybe.
Or maybe he did it on purpose as a misdirection too. I don't know, but
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know, but dude, that's a freaking great catch.
I just remembered that in chapter 5, Nock gives us the story of the family. And I'm like, when I was rereading it, I'm like, Hall, I've heard that name before. And I'm like, I wonder if it has something to do with Nock. So I went back and I read that section in chapter 5. So, yeah.
Well, nice job, man.
Thanks, dude. But that's all I have. That's all I had for that section 5. I am ready to move on to what I thought was another good section. We kind of get to, retrace some steps.
Yeah, and part of this like is why I was thinking maybe Traveler was Bowden.
Right.
Just because we've got, Lostara and Pearl kind of retracing his path in a
Yeah.
sense. So I was like, well, maybe. I don't know.
Fair enough.
All right. Pampatsan Hills. Lostara said she knew. Pearl smiled and said she knew why he asked her along. Lostara interrupted him, saying there was no way he could have known where they would end up. Pearl said that was true, but he held some blind faith in nature's cyclical nature. Also, was there a buried city nearby? Lostara asked a if he meant a buried city besides the one they were standing on. What did he think all these flat-topped hills were? Pearl said this place would work out just fine. Lostara asked, for what? Pearl told her a ritual. They needed to find a trail that was old and sorcerous. Did she think they would just wander aimlessly, hoping to find something? Lostara said that was odd. That's what she thought they had already been doing. Pearl said he was putting some distance between them and the IMS head they left behind. He could feel its unhuman eyes on them all the way across the valley. Lostara agreed, saying it was the IMS eyes and the damned vultures. She could still feel them. They would be out of food and water pretty quick, and then they would be in real trouble. Pearl said he would leave those problems to her. Lostara clapped back, saying he could plan on killing her and eating her. But what if she killed him first? Pearl said it had become much cooler here. It appears to be a localized phenomenon, but the ritual he is about to perform will heat things up. Lostara said, if only the excitement of disbelief, as she walked to the edge of the tell and looked southwest towards the whirlwind. Behind her, she heard Pearl speaking in a language unknown to her, thinking it was likely gibberish. She had seen enough mages work to know they didn't need words unless they're performing, which was what Pearl was probably doing. She clapped her hands to remove the dust and turned around as Pearl stood. She said that didn't take long. Pearl said he was lucky a local earth spirit was killed nearby. Its ghost lingers like a child looking for its parents. It would speak to any and every stranger that happened by, provided that stranger was willing to listen. Lostara asked what it had to say. Pearl said there was a terrible accident. That also probably killed the spirit. She interrupted him and said to lead on. They were wasting time. She thought to herself that she had asked a question, she should let him answer it. She grabbed her pack and followed him. They walked all day, and just before dusk they reached a wagon surrounded by tiny bones. Lostara thought they were birds. Pearl said they were rats. They are, or were, a part of a particularly nasty divers named Gyrllen. Lostara asked if he was killed here. Pearl didn't think so, but he was badly wounded. Pearl found a small chunk of melted metal and said it looked like it was probably from a Malazan cadre mage. Lostara found a whole corpse or skeleton. Pearl came over and they brushed it off. As they got the last of the ash off of it, its eyes opened. This surprised Lostara, and she jumped back, drawing her sword. Pearl said it was okay, this thing wasn't going anywhere. Pearl asked if it could still speak. He heard faint rasping, forcing him closer. Lostara asked what it had said. He repeated that its name was Clam, and that it had died a terrible death. Lostara said that was easy to see. Pearl interrupted her, continuing, he said the body once it had died, it became an undead porter for Gyrllen. Lostara said that sounded equally unpleasant. Pearl said they wouldn't get much more info from Clam or any of the others as the sorcery faded, meaning either Gyrllen was indeed dead or was a long ways away. Also, remember the Fire Warren? It was unleashed here in an unusual manner. It also left them a trail. Lostara said it was too dark now, they should camp. Pearl asked if she meant here. She looked around and reconsidered, but said she was tired, and if they are looking for signs, they will need the daylight. Pearl waved his hand, and an orb of light appeared above him. He said he didn't think the trail led far. He said there was one last task, and then they would camp. Lostara said lead on. Whatever trail Pearl followed was invisible to Lostara as they weaved their way around. They had nearly stopped moving. Pearl's face was beaded with sweat. Lostara wanted to ask what was up. Instead, she drew her sword. Finally, they came to another corpse. Pearl sank to his knees in front of a large burned body. Once Pearl was composed, Lostara asked what had happened. He replied that Hood was here, like, really here, as he punched through the body. It was only a shell. Hood had been here and took this man's body and soul. all that had been infected by the Warren of Fire, or more precisely, the Warren of Light. He wished he had a deck of dragons right now. There had been a change in Hood's household. Lostara asked what was significant about this. They were looking for Felison. Pearl told her she wasn't thinking. What they found at Gyrllen's wagon was what was left of Culp, and this here was Bowden, the damned Talon. Though the proof wasn't around his neck. Remember the strange skin on Gessler, Stormy, and Truth? Same thing happened to Bowden. Lostara said he had called it an infection. Pearl said he didn't know what it was. The Warren had changed them, and there was no way to know in what way. Lostara deducted that they were left with Felison and Heberick then. She had something to tell Pearl, though it may not be relevant. When they trailed that agent of the Shaikh into the hills, and Pearl named that agent Kalam Makar, Lostara continued, saying when they ambushed the Shaikh at the old temple on the trail leading to Raraku, they should have seen all of this. So all this happened after the ambush. Lostara said Felison and Heberick were with the army of the apocalypse in Raraku. Pearl asked how she could be so certain. She shrugged, asking where else could they be? Think about it. Felison's hatred for the Empire must be consuming her, and Heberick wouldn't hold much love for the Empire that imprisoned and condemned him. They would have been desperate and hurting after Gyrllen's attack. Pearl nodded and said there was one thing she had never explained. How did their ambush on the Shaikh fail? Lostara said it didn't. They blew her head off, but they couldn't recover her body because her guards were too much for them. Pearl asked then who was leading the apocalypse. Lostara didn't know. Pearl asked her if she could show him the site of the ambush in the morning. The light above Pearl faded and winked out.
Interesting.
Yeah, again, I only had a couple comments here, and just, the first one, Pearl and Lostara are just such an odd couple. Like, I don't know. They're entertaining to read for sure.
Absolutely entertaining. I like the pair. I almost feel like there's a romance blossoming in this like weird way. I don't know.
I don't know that I would go that far. It's almost like, to me, it feels kind of like brother and sister, I guess. But I can see where you're coming from.
They just seem to like tease each other like you would in first grade,
There's definitely teasing, yeah.
Yeah. Maybe it could go as far as to say it's sexual tension. I don't know. There seems to be some type of attraction between the pair.
Yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe, yeah, it's not so much brother sister because she was like, oh, I asked him a question. I should let him answer it. Like, I don't think that's something like a brother or sister would think. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how far it'll progress or anything, but
Yeah. I mean, it's a small thing, but yeah. My thought is do you think that this ghost is Culp? Because that's what I imagined is that because they make it seem that, it was a recent death. Right. And it seems like he would talk to anybody who will listen. I don't know. I just get this weird feeling that it's Culp.
I felt like it was, and it doesn't make sense now, but at the time I thought it was one of the, I thought it was Clam, sorry.
Yeah.
But obviously that doesn't make a lot of sense when Pearl talks to Clam. So I don't know, unless it was one of the other ones or something.
Well, do you remember who Clam is?
Who Clam is?
Yeah,
he was like he was with Gyrllen. He was like carrying the Palanquin or whatever the hell it was, and then yeah, that's about all I remember. If it was somebody specific before that, I don't remember.
Yeah, I remember it was him, and I think it was another one. And I
thought there was 4 of them.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I don't know if they all got named or not.
I just remember them being very very upset about their demise. Like they had recently died and then immediately were conscripted to carry around graves. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
that's what I remember. So I remember them being comic relief, but also their stories were tragic in the towards the end of Dead House Gates there.
Yeah. I don't think it would be Culp though, because I don't think he would be, like where it's described as like a lost child or whatever. I don't really feel like that would be.
But remember how he behaved in the beginning of Dead House Gates, where we get that like training section with Coltane and the 7th or whatever. I don't know. He's just not very strong. So I equate that as maybe on a sorceress level, very childish. But I mean, I could be wrong. I don't know who else it would be. I think that because of the nature of the section, it's supposed to bring us back to that part with Gyrllen. I assumed that the ghost was Culp because
Gotcha.
it was a tragic death for him.
Yeah, I guess I never had that thought. I'd never thought that way, but that's okay.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Yet another thought or two here.
No, we talked about him.
Okay. Pearl's talking about, how this shell of a corpse is Bowden, and but the proof wasn't around his neck. You're recalling the strange skin, and then Gessler, Stormy, and Truth, same thing on them. So, do you think that those three are also a part of Hood's household?
No, I don't. I think I talk about it in my last section. I don't really care if we do it now or then. I mean, I don't think it comes up until then again, but I mean, we could totally talk about it now.
Don't matter to me, man. Whatever.
So in the last section, we're at this part where the Tist Leosans that we met with Onrack and Troll are talking about the trespassers, the thieves of fire, and they were able to quest and was able to determine that they were not far. And I think what my initial suspicion is that it sounds like Fellows Bowden, Gessler, Stormy, Truth, they all somehow inadvertently stole fire from Corral Gyrllen, right? Because of that, it seems like they have bronze skin, but and I don't remember where it was, but in somewhere in Memories of Ice, we were told that it was because they are near ascension that they have bronze skin. So my guess is that somehow humans were able to steal fire from an elder warrant. They took Corral Gyrllen, but because they are human, that makes them near ascendants. Because humans cannot wield elder sorcery or elder magic. But because they stole it, they're near ascension. I don't know. That's just kind of where my immediate thoughts go.
It was more than I was bargaining for there.
Sorry.
You don't have to be sorry. That's why I was like, when you said no, I was like, okay. That was just kind of a yes or no question in my mind. So that's all. So I like when you give me, I get your thoughts.
Okay. So I don't know. Yeah, this whole bronze thing, I feel like this maybe does reveal a little bit more, but it doesn't do it for me. It's not enough. There's still too many questions.
All right. Well, I'm sure we'll eventually get some answers.
Yeah, for sure.
This I didn't. This is just kind of coming to me now, but I kind of wonder why a little bit, and then I think, well, why would they have a reason? Why would Pearl or Lostara have a reason to think this? But they've they know that Felison and Heberick are with the apocalypse. But why don't they think, oh, well, maybe she took over as Shaik? But why would they think that? They wouldn't. So there's, I don't know. I don't really have anything more to go off on that, but that was just kind of my thoughts. As a reader, like, obviously we know who Felison is. Like, well, why don't they think, why isn't it not even, like, on their radar that it might be the case? But there's no reason it would be, so I don't know.
Well, then, I mean, that they don't know rebellion culture, right? Like, they're totally ignorant to Dryjana and the prophecy and the whirlwind and all of that kind of stuff, right? So Lostara this whole time had been thinking that Shaik is dead, but really she's been reborn, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was all I got here. It was kind of like creepy a little bit, like she's thinking, oh, these are birds, and they're just like rat carcasses, skeletons.
Mm-hmm.
There's some good imagery in this section for sure.
Yeah. And again, it ties back to that part, which is just as equally visual in Dead House Gates. And so it makes you recollect that, but it also makes you think that Gyrllen may not be dead, which is scary.
Was it just? I
Was
guess
it
I don't
just that
remember
fire?
exactly how that all
Yeah, I
ended,
think so.
and I guess I don't remember any definite answer one way or the other. If we thought he died or if he might have escaped.
I think we probably had a similar conversation. But granted, this doesn't really answer it, but it definitely makes me think that he's not dead.
Yeah, I don't know. It's could go either way. I'm not sure which way I lean.
Well, I guess we'll just read or find out, right? We'll find out eventually. It's got to be an
Yeah.
answer out there somewhere.
Or somebody will tell us if there's not, I guess. Or maybe they won't tell us. We'll just leave us hanging.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, let's should we read my favorite section?
Yeah.
His memories awakened. What had laid buried within Onrack was layers. Over countless centuries was a landscape Onrack could read once more. What he saw before him now, the mesas on the horizon were gone, the gorges were gone, even the city on the horizon's edge, clinging to the winding river, was gone. The scenes played out for a long time in Onrack's mind. All that he saw was how it had been, so long ago. He saw an inland sea, now known as the Clotar Sea. He saw birds wheeling in the sky that had long become extinct. He saw figures on the shore of the inland sea. They were from Renig Obar's clan. They had come to trade ivory and Denrabi oil from their tundra homelands. It seemed that they had brought the chill winds with them, or perhaps the chilly weather that had come to this warm climate was from something darker. A Jaghut hidden somewhere, cooking with Omto Spalak. Any more of this chilly weather, and the reefs would die, along with the creatures that depended on the reef. Unease fluttered through the flesh and bone version of Onrack. He had stepped aside, no longer a bone caster for his clan. Abzin Tholai was far better at the hidden arts and more inclined to the ambition of those who followed the path of Talan. All too often, though, Onrack had found his mind wandering to other things. Raw beauty, such as he saw before him now. He was not much for fighting or rituals of destruction. Onrack had been creating cave paintings in solitude. Onrack had grown great at the sorcery of paint. Out of that desire to be alone, he was among a people where solitude was as close to a crime as possible. To separate was to weaken, where breaking vision into its separate components demanded a fine edge and potentially deadly behavior. He thought to himself that he was a poor bonecaster. He was never what he was meant to be. When Onrack broke the unwritten covenant and painted a truthful image of a woman, of a mortal Emas, when you trapped her in time, there is a cavern no one was meant to find. Then he fell to the wrath of kin, to Logros himself and the first sword. He remembered Tool's expression upon the painting of his sister, wonder and awe, a resurgence of abiding love. Onrack was certain that what he saw on Tool's face, he saw on others as well, though none spoke of it. The law had been broken, and he would pay the penalty for it. He never knew if Kalava had seen the painting, and never known if she was upset by what she saw, or saw the passion of his heart that he put into the painting. That is the last memory he came to. Troll Sengar is heard telling Onrack that his silences always sent shivers through him. Onrack replied, saying that the night before the ritual, not far from their current position, he was to be banished from his tribe. He had committed a crime to which there was no answer for. Instead, 4 Jaghut tyrants had risen and banded together to destroy this land, as indeed they have. Troll said nothing, wondering what exactly was destroyed. Onrack continued, saying that he was alone in the cavern where he had committed his crime. He had thought that it was the last night with his own kind. Even though he was already alone, driven from the camp to his final place of solitude, a touch from a warm body, soft beyond belief. It wasn't his wife, as she had been the first to shun him, for the betrayal it had meant. He wondered if it was her. He would never know, because it was pitch black and she was gone by morning. gone from all of them. Even as the ritual was proclaimed and the clans gathered, she defied the call. More horrible yet, she had killed her own family, all but Tool, who had managed to drive her off with his fighting ability. He wondered if it was her again. Was there unseen blood on her hands? The dried powder he had found on his arm, which he had thought was paint. She fled from Onos to him, to his cave of shame. Who had he heard in the passage beyond? Did someone see their lovemaking? For Onrack could not. Troll told Onrack that he doesn't need to say more. Inside his head, Onrack agrees and elaborates that if he were flesh, Troll would see him weeping. Onrack could tell that Troll could see his grief, but yet still wondered why Onrack had proclaimed his vow. After a moment, Onrack said that the trail of the renegades is fresh. Troll half smiled and stated that Onrack enjoyed killing. Onrack turned to Troll and said that artistry finds new forms, it defies being silenced. Onrack continued to say that, of course, it wasn't really up to him anymore, unless the Edur wished the same. Troll scanned the land and said that these renegades were the reason for the betrayal of his people, and he must find out their role in everything, so therefore they must find them. Onrack asked Troll if Troll would speak with them. Troll said yes, and when he was done, Onrack could kill them. Onrack admits that he is unable to, as he is badly damaged. Plus, Monarch Ochem and Ibrar Golan were still hot on their trail, so they will suffice in killing the renegades. The Edur asked if it was just the two of them in pursuit. Onrack said even with his powers diminished, he was positive. Troll asked how close. The Amass said it didn't matter, as the two Amass in pursuit will withhold their desire for vengeance against him in hopes that Onrack will lead them to those that have hunted. They have hunted from the very beginning. Troll asked if they suspected that Onrack would join the renegades. Onrack said that this was true, as he was broken. Troll asked Onrack if he would join the renegades. Onrack considered the question for a moment before replying that he would if Troll did. I love this section because there's artistry here. To start off the section, this part where they're talking about Jaghut were hiding somewhere, cooking with Almatos Falak, any more of this chilly weather, and the reefs would die. I just thought that this part was interesting, and I'm wondering if this is the beginning of something. Are the Jaghut the reason why Raraku dried up and lost all its water?
I don't know, but it was interesting. It made me think of like global warming, I guess. Just if the reefs die, that's, in our world, in the real world, that's bad news if the coral reefs die.
Right. Yeah, because it's such an ecosystem for a lot of wildlife, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know what it is, but, obviously we know that, the Jaghut seem to have bullied the Amass. That's kind of where I was going with that, is maybe this is the start of something. Clearly at the beginning of the section, Onrack is recalling what I imagined is a inland sea, right? Full of water.
Right.
And lush vegetation all over the place, blah, 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 blah. It kind of goes on to describe himself back then, and maybe parts of these are still true. But he was saying that he was not much for fighting or rituals of destruction. And that made me think of the book of Dryjana, right? And I wonder if the book was written by an Amass. Was Dryjana a Talani Mass?
I don't know. Coming at me with the deep thoughts here, deep cuts.
That's right. And then this part where Onrack had grown good or great at the sorcery of paint, right? And this just makes me super giddy, because I think what Erickson is being very intentional with is that he's saying about sorcery and painting / art in general is that, when you create something, you breathe life into it, right? And that can be magical. But also, kind of going back to what we've talked about with Karza and sculpting his gods, that he's creating something which is the opposite of destruction.
I feel like that probably hits more home to you as an artist.
Yeah.
Where I definitely would not call myself an artist.
It's okay. Art can take on many forms. Podcasting is an art.
I guess. Not in the same sense as like you're painting or drawing, but
No,
there's a creativeness to it, I agree.
that's fair. But I don't know. It's just I think this is the reason why. I think this gives us an answer as to why Kalava is still alive, even though she has not gone through the ritual.
I mean, I will say, yeah, this section did confuse me some for sure.
Okay. I think I make a comment about that later on and draw direct things. So we'll just keep going.
Sure.
And then this part where he's like, we're breaking vision into separate components, demand a fine edge and potentially deadly behavior. And from what I'm getting here, he's talking about the observation of life and using his imagination to create art on the cave's walls. That is what I'm interpreting is what he means here. Breaking vision into separate components, right? Like that is what artists do. We take very complex things and we break them down into basic shapes and then refine from there with what could be a deadly behavior. Like we're just super into it. And then he fell to the wrath of kin, to Logros himself and the first sword. When I read this, I knew immediately that he was talking about Tool. So Onrack and Tool know each other, blah, blah, blah. But this part where Onrack talks about Kalava never seeing the painting, never knowing if she was upset by what she saw, or saw the passion of his heart that he put into the painting. And going back to the awe and wonder that Onrack saw on Tool's face and everyone around him looking at this crime, right? That this painting was likely hyper realistic, like such a direct translation of Kalava's image onto a cave wall. And that reminds me of Karza and his sculptures of his friends, how realistically they looked compared to the others. And there's some parallels there that I'm liking. Not exactly sure 100% where they're going, but I think it's cool. This concept of art has sorcery, right? So the difference between Karza's sculptures of Bayroth and Delum and Kalava and Onrack's portrait, right, of her is that Kalava was alive when that was painted. Bayroth and Delum already being dead, I would imagine that the best they can do in that situation is to give Karza their spirits. I don't know.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I had a hard time because I don't know. I'll take your next comment here because maybe you'll kind of explain things here.
You're wondering why it's a crime?
Well, because I felt like yeah, that must have been what the crime was, that he painted, drew a picture of her, and I didn't really understand why. Did they not want pictographs left behind of them or something? I don't know.
Well, this part where he wasn't having sex with his wife, as she had been the first to shun him for the betrayal it had meant, right? So the act of painting is not the crime, as it's kind of suggested to be, but it's more adultery, right? Onrack painted another woman that was not his wife. And I'm going to maybe take a stab at it that she was maybe likely in a very suggestive pose. So cave porn is kind of where my mind is going.
We got a new genre here.
Yeah, cave porn. And so that is what is the crime, is the adultery, right?
I guess I didn't think of that. I had kind of felt like the crime itself was just the fact that he did it. And maybe that it was of, not his wife, I guess, but
that's what I'm going to go with. I'm sure that there's a possibility that I could be wrong, but the fact that his wife was the first one to ostracize him tells me that, if I was his wife, right? I would be pretty upset that that's not me up there, but someone else. He thinks that Kalava is more beautiful than his wife. And in this Talan culture, that's a problem.
I didn't think about it that way, but I still like, and I'm not saying like it's okay he did what he did, but it's hard for me to like think that's what it is. You know, I don't know. I think you make solid points. I'm not
Yeah.
taking a not taking a dump on that. It's just like,
Yeah. I think it's just because, like, it's not, I mean, adultery, like, we're very desensitized by that. Like, right? Like, we're on Instagram, we're on TikTok, we're like Maxim back in the day, Maxim magazine, right? Like, you're looking at beautifully photoshopped women, right? I mean, I knew tons of my friends' dads had those magazines, right? And they were married, but it's not as big of a deal nowadays. But I would imagine a culture like the Amass, where, as they say, those that stay together live together, or whatever, you know what I mean? Like strength in numbers types of thing. That
yeah.
this is probably not the thing to do.
All right, well, I'll go with it. Again, I'm not like against it. It's just like it seems like a weird thing.
Yeah. And then there's this part where Onrack could tell that Troll could see, his grief, but yet still he wondered why Onrack had proclaimed his vow. And I'm still very curious about that too. Like why did you go along with the ritual when nobody liked you? You know what I mean? Like, and this whole section is talking about solitude and wanting to be alone, and but yet he does this ritual, thus eternally binding him to his kin.
Yeah, but how much more lonely could it be living forever? You know,
And
you don't can't really use death as an out for your punishment.
do you think it's because he was like afraid to die or what?
No, it just seems like the more, I guess, like noble thing to do.
To do the ritual was noble?
Yeah, like he's gonna like accept his punishment.
Mm,
He's
I
gonna
see what you're
like
saying.
isolate himself forever from everybody, or try to. I don't know if that's what he's doing, but
Interesting. Yeah, I guess I just there's so many ways that this can go, and I thought that was cool, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Maybe that will be answered, maybe it won't.
a lot of wait and sees here tonight.
Yeah. There's this line that Onrak says to Troll, and that he says that artistry finds new forms. It defies being silent. And I kind of want to get a tattoo of that. Like, that is so cool.
That saying.
Yeah. Like, it doesn't matter what you do to art, it will find a way.
I don't know how you thought of that, but what that made me think was he's going to make killing an art form, is what I thought.
Oh, I feel the same way too.
Okay.
I'm just applying
Gotcha.
it in a broader sense,
Sure.
a
Okay.
non-destructive, murderous sense. The last thing that I just thought was it gave me a little bit of a chuckle was at the end of the section where Onrak is like, well, I guess I can't really join him unless you do. Gave me a chuckle, which I would imagine that Troll is not going to join forces with the seven faces in the rock.
And Karsa, like, do you think we're gonna get like a showdown between Karsa and Onrack and Troll? Like, what do you think is gonna happen there?
I don't know. Karsa, I mean, it kind of, the last we left off with him, he assumes that he's within the House of Chains, right?
Yeah.
And that he's going to be the eighth god of the Teblor, right? Like he's pretty much promised this elevated position, right? And then that's it. Like we haven't seen him since. So
Yeah, because he was
hope this
making
next
his
chapter,
sword.
right? Yeah, that I think Bayroth and Delam are invested in.
Yeah, like another kind of like another Dragnipper in some sense. Some
Yeah,
souls inside it.
but almost like there's consent to being in the sword.
Sure. Yeah.
Or Dragniper, there's no consent there.
No, it's not.
You did. So yeah, I don't know. I just love this section. Everything just made so much sense.
I can see that, especially with your artistic eye.
Yeah.
I'm glad it worked out. You had that section. I think
yeah.
I think my favorite section is probably the last section, and just for like the last paragraph.
Oh yeah. So does the Kalaba thing make sense to you now? that like we've gone through some of these talking points. Like, do you see how that is the reason why she was able to defy the ritual and still be alive all these years later?
I don't know, honestly. Sorry, you get a stupid podcast co-host.
You're fine. You're fine. It's okay. I just
Some of it I think is just like it's we've been kind of choppy lately, just as far as like being able to record consistently and stuff, and just everything else I've had going on. So it's just like hard to retain all that information.
for sure. I mean, and that's fair. I guess in your mind, how is Kalava alive to you?
Dude, I don't know.
No. It's just one of those things it is. I'm not questioning it. Got it.
She's Nymus. They're fucking
Weird.
yeah.
I know that we had some questions in Memories of Ice about that. So it was kind of cool to see that like fleshed out a little bit. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. All right. I'm good. I'm done ranting.
All right. Excuse me. Well, I'll take my last section here. They were on the edge of some farmland, so it was easy enough to avoid being seen. The one road they did cross, they did not see anyone in either direction as far as they could see. There were hills ahead where the Talons had broken ice sheets, the first place of defiance. This was done to protect the holy sites, hidden caves, and flint quarries where the weapons were now kept, weapons the renegades would reclaim. There was no history to the sorcery investing the blades, at least in respect to Talon. They would feed the ones who held them, provided they were kin to the makers or made by the same hands long ago. Also, if the renegades found the weapons, it would give them freedom, cutting the power of Talon from their bodies. Troll spoke to Onrack, saying he spoke of betraying his clan. These seemed to be old memories. Onrack replied, saying they are destined to repeat their crimes. Memories had returned to him. All he had thought lost, and he did not know why. Troll asked if it was the severing of the ritual. Onrack said perhaps. Troll asked what Onrack's crime was. Onrack said he trapped a woman in time by painting her likeness on the wall of a holy cave. He believed by doing so he was responsible for murders that followed. For her leaving the clan, she could not join the ritual that made them immortal because she had already become immortal by his hand. Did she know? Was this why she defied the Logros and the First Sword? There are no answers for that. What madness took over her to kill her family? The First Sword, her own brother. Troll figured out that this woman was not Onrack's mate. Onrack confirmed this, saying she was a bonecaster and soul-taken. Troll said even still, Onrack still loved her. Onrack shrugged and said obsession is its own kind of poison. The two companions began walking up a goat path. Troll said he was against the idea that they were destined to repeat their mistakes. Were there no lessons learned? Doesn't experience lead to wisdom? Onrack spoke, saying he had betrayed Monok Ochum and Ibra Golan, betrayed the Talon-Imus, for he did not accept his fate. So, the same crime he had committed long ago. He had always wanted solitude from his own kind, and in the nascent realm he was content, as he was in the sacred caves that lay ahead. Troll asked if he was content now, in this moment. Onrack was silent a moment before answering. He said, when memories return, solitude is an illusion, for every silence is filled with searching for meaning. Troll said he is sounding more human with every day that passed. Onrack corrected him, saying he meant flawed. Troll grunted and said, even so, just look at what he is doing now. Onrack didn't understand. With a sad smile, Troll said he was returning home. So I don't know if this section maybe changes things. I know I've got a thought here, and it's kind of the same point. But before I look, I don't even remember what I had down for my thought. But so just as I read that back, to me, it almost feels like you had said, the painting wasn't so much the crime. Maybe it's just where he did it. And I kind of forgot about this part until rereading it.
It could be two things, yeah.
Sure.
Committed adultery on a holy site.
Yeah. So, I guess, to me, what this feels like it's saying is that Onrack made her immortal by painting her in this holy cave, drawing her in this holy cave. So, like, yeah, I guess my thought here, to me, I thought that was interesting. So I was like, is this, the literal thing that's happening, or is he just, speaking figuratively? I mean, if she's still alive, it's almost like the literal thing, I suppose. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that really contradicts anything you were thinking before.
I think it reaffirms it.
Okay, cool.
Just saying. I guess until we are told otherwise, right? Like, I guess that's just the canon I'm gonna have in my head. Is like, this is how these are the reasons why she's outside of the ritual.
So like if he just like drew her on a rock as they're walking around wherever they're at, like not a big deal.
I think that it's the intent behind the piece. I would imagine that if I were a sorcerer, right, I would have the ability to do it well, and I would have the ability to not do it well, if that makes any sense. If I wanted to switch my Diet Mountain Dew with piss, like I could, right? That's not really anything outside of what it is, right? But to recreate, and I would imagine that, again, Onrack is not looking at this woman. This is all from memory. You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't have a picture. He's not pulling up Facebook.
True.
And looking at Kalava's profile pictures. You know what I mean? Like, this is all from memory. For him to be able to depict in some type of realistic fashion, right? There has to be a reason why Tool and the rest of his kin reacted the way that they did, right? Because you don't react like that when you look at shitty art. You're not awestruck when you look at shitty art. You're dumb.
No, that's a fair point.
You know
like,
what I mean?
Holy shit. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's
a good
kind
point.
of my interpretation of this. Could I be wrong? I think that Erickson and I could probably have a very elaborate conversation about this one specific section.
Maybe you'll get that chance.
Maybe.
And I'm just gonna sit there with some popcorn. Yeah.
Fair enough. But yeah, those were, I guess, all I had to add to this section.
Another thing I'll add here, again, not anything that I jotted down, but I like, Troll here I like a lot. Because obviously, like, Onrack's kind of down in the dumps here, right? He's like, oh, I'm just making the same mistakes I made before. And Troll's like, you know what? I don't buy that. You learn from your experiences so that, if something similar comes up, you can apply things differently. You can do it differently. Like, you'll remember, like, hey, last time I did this time I'm going to do things differently. I don't have to make the same mistake. So
do you see the Amass embracing that type of? Just curious.
Probably not on their own, but with maybe he's with Troll here. Maybe that can be broken.
Yeah.
Maybe he can bring out a different train of thought for Onrack here. Make him do something different. And I wonder now that you say that, I kind of wonder if that's not what will happen, is that he will push him to do something different.
Maybe. I think so. But you also got to remember he's no longer part of the ritual, right? He's broken. He's shorn. He lives outside of it, or at least in between it.
Maybe he'll still abide by those principles. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think I've got anything else to add here, buddy.
A short distance away camped the Tist Leos, and Malachar reflected that they were battered but alive. Strange stars glimmered overhead, and the landscape stretched out from beneath them. The fire they had made next to a mesa was attracting strange animal life. To Malachar, there seemed to be an aura of unwelcome in this realm. After fussing with the bug bite, he turned to the sensical. Jarud knelt by the fire, had been quiet for some time. Enias squatted close to the sensitrol, ready and waiting for a fit of anger that could overwhelm his master. Orinus stood guard over the horses. Malachar thought that they would account for the Amass one day. They had proceeded with the ritual in good faith. The lesson learned here was to never trust a corpse. Malachar didn't know if such a warning existed in the sacred text of Osric's vision. If it wasn't, Malachar would see that it would be added. Jarud slowly straightened and announced that the Guardian was dead. He informs them all that their realm has been assailed and that their brothers and sisters have been informed, and now ride out to the gates. For the group of them, a task, the same task they were assigned to complete. In this realm, the trespassers, the thieves of fire, he was quested and was able to determine that they were not far. Melchar waited as he knew there was more. Jarud smiled and said that to his brothers that they know nothing of this place, but that it is only temporary. He has sensed an old friend of the Leozans. They shall seek him out so that he can help them get acquainted with the land. Enias asked who this old friend was. Jarud said he was the maker of time. So my first thought we had already talked about with the bronze near ascendant thing. So the only comment that I had was just at the end when Jarud is saying that he has sensed an old friend of the Leozans. I thought at first they were talking about Lorik, but shortly thereafter they say Ikariam's name. And I just can't help but to think, but like, what isn't this dude involved with?
Yeah, the Maker of Time was a neat nickname, and then what they call him, the Slayer of 10,000.
Yeah.
Like, oh, dang. I don't remember if we'd heard that before or not. We might have, but I wonder if we'll ever see, like, what he did.
Oh, I'm sure we will. There's got to be a point where Ikariam gets his memories back.
Don't you think it would just break him?
I mean, it's better than living in repeat, right? I mean, maybe he's subject to Tano sorcery, right? He's elliptical.
I don't know. What is...
Yeah, I don't know.
What's that movie? Eternal Sunshine
for the Spotless Mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't that where he loses his memories? Is that movie? That's with Jim Carrey, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. I don't know. It's been a long time since I've seen that movie.
Because his girlfriend leaves him or something, and then at the end he meets her again. I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Odd comparison to make, but I guess just with all that, I don't know whether it's better to live in a repeat like that or to know the truth. Yeah, I think if he found out the truth, maybe he wished he wouldn't have.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I can't tell if Ikariam is good or bad, and I know that that's not really a thing in this series, but I don't know, and it's not even really good or bad. I just don't know where he fits.
I agree, and I mean everybody thinks their side is right and they're good and the other side's bad, but we could put a lot of these characters probably on a line, good on one side, bad on the other, and towards the middle is neutral. Right,
yeah. We could put him on a spectrum for sure.
But you're right, I think he is hard to place.
I don't know where I would put him. If we're talking about an imaginary line of over here very bad, here very good, and somewhere in between. I feel like a lot of these characters would fall mainly in the center, right?
Okay, I will give you my quick line here. On the far right of the bad, you would have Bidafal.
Yep.
On the far left of the good, I would say Brucalion.
Sure.
Just because I think, I don't know, I think it was just, he sacrificed himself, right? He knew he had to do it. I think he's probably one of the best characters, as far as a pure good. And obviously we only saw him a short time. And then I guess I would put Ikariam in the middle because he could go either way.
Right.
It sounds like he's done some horrible shit in the past, but we don't really know exactly how it transpired.
Where would you put Kovian? Would you put him more further good than Brucalion or behind Brucalion?
They would be pretty close. I would say they'd be pretty close.
Freeing the Amass is.
I don't know. I don't know if there's going to be a death that I hold to a higher regard than Brucalion's.
That was pretty brutal.
That's just an image that's seared into my brain so much. Just him defiant out there as he's murdered by thousands of arrows, 1,200 arrows, whatever it was,
Yeah.
And all the rest of his dudes are they got their shield wall, and he's just outside of it.
Badass.
That's my line, anyways. Yours can be different.
Oh, I would imagine that the majority. I would agree with everything that you just said. That's where I would probably put everyone on my line too. That you mentioned anyway. But yeah, interesting. Well, where do you think this is going to go? Where do you think chapter 17 is going to take us?
I don't know. I wonder, excuse me. I don't know if it'll happen this next chapter, but I wonder, before too long, if we'll get some sort of confrontation between Onrack, Troll, and Karsa and the Seven. I think we're going to get that fight pretty quick. I think we're going to get that big engagement between the Apocalypse and the army foretold as the Bone Hunters.
Right. Well, wasn't chapter 15 about them?
Dude, I don't remember. Well, chapter 17, the first word is Karsa. So
Oh, well,
then
there we
we
go.
get Karsa.
I mean, that's kind of where I'm hoping it's going.
And it's the last chapter of the subbook.
Yeah, cuddles and strings. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Chapter 15 was that was with the Gaul and the Kundrel, where they join the 14th.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So I would imagine that, it makes sense according to the way that things seem to be having a pattern as far as what we cut back to. Karsa makes sense because we haven't seen him since chapter 14.
It's been a couple of them. Yeah, I don't know. I might try to read it tonight. I don't know if I will or not, but
I don't know how many pages is this chapter.
I think it's between 20 and 30. It's not real long.
Oh, then I might just rock it out. I usually try to read for about an hour each night. It doesn't always happen. Sometimes it's a half hour, sometimes it's 45 minutes, sometimes it's an hour and 10. But just from like 10 to 11, just be reading. So
Yeah.
I probably will.
Yeah, I may or may not. Just kind of depends here, but you'll have to let me know what you think if you do.
Yeah, for sure. I always will.
Any bold predictions on your end?
I feel like Karsa is he doesn't like what he's been received, what he's been gifted. I wouldn't even call it a gift from his perspective. So I don't see him going along with it. I don't know. I feel like he's going to do something to upset his gods. And I don't know what they can or won't do. Like maybe they start going after him for revenge, or I don't know. Maybe they send. I don't know.
Well, I think he'll make his sword. That'll be interesting, I think. Yeah.
So what about you? Any outside of the sword thing? Any big predictions?
No. I wonder what's going to happen with Felsen the Younger. Because the last we saw her, she was like crawling away from her rape. I mean, that's the only thing you can call it, right?
Right.
How is she going to recover from that? Is she going to recover from that? I don't know. It was pretty brutal.
It was brutal. Yeah, I don't know. I hope that we get to see Bidethal's demise here soon.
Yeah, dude.
I feel like there's consequences, though. As shitty as that is, because he deserves it, I think that there might be some consequences to doing so.
Yeah, and I don't know how that'll play out.
Yeah, it almost kind of seems like the Seven want her to do it. And that can't be a good thing. Like, there's got to be a hook attached to that action.
Time will tell.
Yeah. Time will tell. But yeah, dude. Another nice episode. Yeah, just shy of... What time did we get on?
I think it was about 7:30, wasn't it?
Yeah, so a couple
7:40.
hours.
Yeah, I will say, this wasn't like probably my most favorite chapter by any means, but it wasn't bad, but it was just kind of transactional. But there was some good info here, some good stuff to read.
Yeah, just catching up on where all of our characters are and where they're going, essentially. It's kind of how I take it, right?
Yeah. So I'll be curious to where this goes, how this subbook is gonna leave off, and what we're gonna be set up here for essentially the last 25% of the book.
Right. It'll be nice. We're kind of winding down the stretch. Hopefully by end of July we'll be starting kind of a new book.
Yeah, we'll just have to see how consistent we can be and everything there. So
I mean, tomorrow's the last day of school for not my kids, but where I work. So I would imagine that I'll have plenty of time.
Oh, really? Yeah,
Yeah.
I think my kids, they go to June 5th, I think is their last day.
Yeah. Yeah. Summer starts for me next week.
Ooh, lucky duck. I've got a job interview next Thursday, so we'll see how
Nice.
that goes.
Well, best of luck.
I'm not terribly worried about it. I'm pretty confident. It's just going to be a matter of do I want it or not. So
Well, if it pays more, hell yeah.
it'll pay more. Yeah. So I don't know. There's some other stuff that'll go into it. So we'll see.
All right, dude.
Good as always talking with you.
Yeah.
And yeah, we'll have to get together again sometime soon here. Hang out for a little bit.
Yes, we do. Get a little crunk.
Yeah, dude. I didn't have one of these tonight, but like we'll have some of these THC drinks.
Hell
It
yeah,
doesn't work
dude.
very good with my background, but I'll have some of those. Have one of those. You're feeling pretty good.
Oh, I've had some. They're nice.
Yeah.
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 They're very nice.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, have a good night, and we'll talk soon. Take it easy.
All right. You too, man.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.
DMJ's Epic Quest. DMJ's Epic Quest. DMJ's CNJ's Epic Quest. CNJ's Epic Quest. CNJ's Epic Quest.